All right. What's going on, gentlemen? What's going on?
Not a whole hell of a lot. We're all full of it tonight, aren't we?
Yeah, I know. Wow, this is really stumbled out of the blocks on this one.
Titillating conversation.
Yeah, yeah. That's what keeps bringing us to millions and millions.
The millions and millions of listeners.
Yeah.
Speaking of millions and millions, did anyone see what one Mr. Charles Montgomery Punk was up to on Monday night?
I saw he showed up to Raw.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Apparently, trying to bury the hatchet with some people and maybe drum up some excitement for his return to AEW. But he actually he buried the hatchet with the Miz and talked to Triple H backstage a little bit, and then Vince kicked him out.
Yeah, which
makes sense. I mean, he's he sued the company. That's
yeah. That was it. Wasn't just a I'm not going to say, hate to use the word drop in the bucket. I'm not talking about monetarily, but it was drawn out over a long period of time.
Yes.
So yeah.
And not to say that it wasn't justified, because I feel like it definitely was justified, but typically when someone sues a company, they don't go and hang around.
Yeah, and it was that. It also was the thing that shattered his friendship with Colt. So
yeah,
for the uninitiated, 2 listeners that'll get this one, Colt Cabana.
So, and I'm wondering, it doesn't seem like it, but I wonder if maybe he hasn't realized, like, hey, man, you know what? Maybe life's too short to be carrying around all these grudges and to go around being a dickhead all the time. Maybe I need to chill out a little bit and kind of mend some fences. And, what better place to start than the place that you have drug through the mud everywhere you've been. So I don't know.
And Rich, I know you follow AEW a lot more extensively than me, and probably at this point, probably more so than you, Bob. But any take on the potential CM Punk return?
I don't know a lot about the CM Punk drama in general. I mean, I know the last bit where he got kicked off with the Elite and them coming back, but other than that, I have none of the baggage. I don't particularly like him or dislike him one way or the other with his style. He's getting a little old at this point, but he's still okay to watch. So I to me, it's not a big deal. I think they've needed this brand split for a while, just because of how big their roster's been getting. Even with the ROH stuff being behind a paywall, they have more people they can use. So it'll be neat to see how another show will do. I don't know about watching a Saturday show though, but thanks to like the internet and DVR and stuff, I can watch it whenever. So I'm excited to see what they do. Yeah, it'll just be interesting. And like I said, I really don't care one way or the other about Punk. So if he's there, fine. And not, whatever.
You made an interesting comment there too. Getting old, which in wrestling terms, he's 44. He's turning 45 this year. Where was on the other show you have Edge. What is he, 49, 50, something like that?
I mentioned it several times. I also like watching Jericho, and Jericho's what, in his 50s now, probably.
Yeah. And the thing with Jericho is, and here's what I'll say, Jericho just reinvents himself so well every time. And in fact, and it's funny, Bob and I kind of hemmed and hawed around this idea well before really early on in the podcast, and we've kind of, I know, batted around with you, Rich, and one of these days we'll do it. But we'll kind of do like a fantasy draft of wrestlers, and I fed an AI, the top 25 most influential wrestlers of WWE, WCW, ECW, ROH, TNA, and the guy that showed up on those lists the most was Chris Jericho. Because he was the most influential in most of those organizations. and it's he reinvents himself, and he's gone out and said that many a time. Somebody like Punk, though, I don't know, reinvent certainly that never comes to mind whenever I hear him. He's been able to keep pace, I think, but just all the, like you said, Bob, burying the hatchet with the Miz and stuff. That's not really something I thought of with him ever. Not exactly the kind of person that mends those bridges.
Right.
So
interesting stuff. But you had a good topic that you wanted to discuss with this episode. So I'll let you kind of take the lead on that and just kind of discuss it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Richie's doing, but
He's cleaning his Apple Watch.
I am, yes.
Well, what'd you do?
Kind of disgusting, yes. I'm
No,
listening.
fun.
I'm paying attention. CM Punk, new topic.
No, I had kind of a passing thought several days ago, and it's something that we've talked about on and off here and there with these different episodes that we've done wrapped around video gaming. We talked about different controllers, and we've name dropped the power pad, the power glove at times, but there's so many video game peripherals, console peripherals, joysticks for the PC, or console controllers that can be used for the PC, and all these fun things that we've all either used, heard of, wanted to throw against the wall. I thought we all at least had this long enough history that this would be certainly something, even without doing much research, that we could easily talk on. And one of the things I thought of, right off the bat, Bob, you and I talked about this on an episode, and this goes back some time, was the wireless controller I had for the NES, which used the IR blaster, and it sucked. It was heavy with all the batteries it took, but you really think going back then, it's like, how cool is it though to have a wireless controller for a system that obviously was never meant to have one? So that was kind of the crux of what made me think of it, and I don't know, is obviously we could get into like the Game Genies and these other crazy things that plugged into the system or systems. And Rich, I know you being Uber collector probably have your fair share of some pretty cool, or maybe just items that, why not?
Yeah, I got the NES ones. Were they the Acclaim controllers?
I looked it up before and I couldn't remember. They were black with they had like a little screw-in joystick.
Okay,
I think they were Acclaim.
I can't remember.
I think I got them out in the garage. I don't think I've ever used them. I think they're just in a box in the garage from when I moved. I have Atari. Atari had wireless joysticks back in the day, but they didn't use IR. They used
RF.
Yeah. So the controllers look like old walkie-talkies because they had that big antenna sticking at the back of the big rubber antenna, and they have a box that connects to the Atari with a little antenna at the back of it, and they actually worked fairly well.
Yeah, I remember.
9-volt battery per controller, and they look like just big chunky Atari joysticks with an antenna sticking out of them.
I remember using that at your house.
Yeah,
at your place in Collingswood.
Yeah,
which was the first place I'd seen them, and I didn't realize they were. I was like, holy shit, this is pretty cool. And then I was down in a thrift store down here a few years ago, and I found one, and I almost grabbed it, but I was like, but they didn't have the receiver for it. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna buy just the controller. That's kind of stupid. So,
yeah, I'd found the Nintendo ones at one point, and I found a link and exactly what they were, and I just it plugged into the controller port. It was a big IR receiver, and then the controllers were just heavy, battery ridden. Probably last like maybe an hour.
and then because they're IR, you have to have line of sight to the box.
Yep.
Yeah, like perfectly positioned for it to
right. And it, look, I don't care whatever consoles that we've all ever had over the years. It's almost damn near impossible to actually have your console positioned exactly line of sight of how you're setting. Console's either always lower, or you're obviously at a distance or whatever. So, but I do remember they had it was really cool because where the D-pad was, it had a little screw-in joystick. I don't know why.
Well, that's similar to the. It sounds like the Acclaim ones. It sounds like the Master System, the Sega Master System. When you got the original version of it, the Mark One, it actually had that too. So you could screw in a little baseball bat thing, and you could, a little joystick, and then you could use that. It's supposed to give you better action. Which I had that when I had the Gravis gamepad for the PC, and I loved using that, the thumbstick thing. I absolutely loved using that.
Oh yeah, oh wow, cool. Huh. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
I had the Gravis. It was only a 4-button, but it was that dog bone shape, like the SNES kind of, except for it went the top one, or the left side went up and was flat, and then the bottom went like that. I think Richie, didn't you have the one that was more like the PlayStation controller?
Yeah, I think it was called the Gravis Grip.
Yeah.
And I think it came with, I don't remember if it was a different game, but I remember buying a game called Jam It that was this horrible basketball game just because it came with a controller. But I think it was like a generic PC controller. I don't think it was a Gravis. So I must have got the Grip by itself at some point. That had the same thing with the screw on top. Yeah. And it gave you just a little bit extra play, which was kind of nice.
Yeah. But I enjoyed that. I kind of wish that I mean, I guess we did kind of get that with the rest of the systems when actual thumbsticks came in, but
Yeah, I don't know. It was different. I know the little, and it kind of goes back to the old Atari joystick, although not as obviously as big. It wasn't meant to be held in your hand, but the little screw-in joystick was more arcade style, whereas the little thumbsticks were a bit different. I don't know. I guess they kind of just fine-tuned it over the years, and realized that people can tend to, I don't know, be a little more. I don't know. It's a little more natural, I guess, with thumb movement, especially with the advent of mobile devices. We all tend to use both our, your thumbs as you do things like that. As we watch Bob doing just that now.
Yeah. Sorry, trying to handle.
You're making my point as I say it, so
trying to put out a fire.
But I don't know, but there's been a lot of. I know we talked about this on PlayStation versus Xbox with the giant controller that was released for that, and they eventually went down to the smaller one. Rich, do you remember using the giant Xbox controller at any given time?
I didn't have an original Xbox, so I never played with their giant. I think the people refer to it as the Duke. I never used either one.
Yep,
the Duke, which took its name from the NFL. That's what they call their football. It's the Duke.
Huh.
Oh, is that how it got its name?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I never knew that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. I learn something every day. Yeah, I think that wraps this one up. I'm just kidding.
So join us next week on the Noise Brigade podcast, where we discuss how the DualSense 3 got its name. Following that, we'll do another episode on how the Wii remote got its name.
They call it the Wiimote. Mote being short for remote.
No way. Actually, you know what? And it's funny. We've talked about that. That was one of the controllers that they figured out that everyone on the planet just about could use. Because that became a staple in senior homes for bowling and whatever got really popular with. So
I don't appreciate you looking at me when you said senior homes.
Well, sorry.
Them old people love their bowling.
I gotta love the Wii bowling. I will say that. I was, curious, taking the Switch controller. Rich, have you done the Switch Sports at all? You played that?
No, I haven't.
Bob and I have. I don't know, Bob, your take on using the Wiimote for bowling or the Switch, Joy-Con for the bowling. What's your take on that?
It was the same to me. I didn't, I didn't really have any issues with the Joy-Con, but I guess maybe the Wiimote just being bigger and me having, larger hands, it was easier, I guess. But I really, it wasn't hard for me either or.
So I'm glad you said that, because like I've actually heard that as a knock on Switch bowling because the Joy-Con's so small, and so people with larger hands, like, they don't like playing that because the Joy-Con's too small.
I think the real question is, do they have a giant plastic bowling ball you can snap your Joy-Con into?
I haven't seen them now. Now they did have them for the
I know,
Wii, but I haven't seen them for the Wii or for the Switch.
See, that was my travel bag for the Wii. It looked like an old bowling ball bag.
Nice.
So the Wii fit on the bottom and all the stuff fit on the top.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
That's an awesome idea. But I mean, that's my complaint with the Joy-Cons just in general, is that they are small. So like trying to play a game where you actually have to manipulate the buttons and the stick and everything, that's difficult playing on the Joy-Cons. But playing the bowling, you're not really hitting buttons, you're just letting go of something, and you're just holding it in your hand. So to me, it's just, either or.
Yeah, I just threw it in chat. That's the exact one that I had, or actually I still have it. And it's actually a Brunswick bag.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's really cool.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, so it held the zipper part at the bottom of the bag, obviously for just between audio here, but it folded out the bottom, the Wii slipped in there, and then all the controllers, Wiimotes, and all the peripherals, games, whatever went inside. So
interesting.
So but speaking, actually, the Wii had multiple ones too. So you had the nunchuck, that was another one.
The classic controller, and then you had the classic controller Pro, which had the grips on it. I mean, and everybody, like, you go to any dollar store now and you can find like a billion like tennis rackets and golf clubs and baseball bats still, because they bought them back then and they still haven't sold through their stock.
I'm not going to get up to where so I can get them. But from where I'm sitting, I have the steering wheel that came with Mario Kart for the Wii, and I got the Link's crossbow.
Oh, the zapper
thing, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Specifically the Link one. I think upstairs somewhere I got the. It looks more like a 357 that was supposed to be for either a Resident Evil game or one of the House of the Deads.
So I had gotten like you said, like the 357, like the Desert Eagle kind of, like, I'd gotten them for House of the Dead. What the hell was it called?
Overkill.
Yes. Yes.
That's the one where it was over the top with him like cussing all the way.
Yeah, I love that game. That game was so good. I'm trying to think what else they had. So obviously there was some terrible stuff that came out for the Wii. One that wasn't just relegated to the Wii was that Tony Hawk Skate, where it came with a skateboard but that didn't have wheels on it, and you were supposed to like actually try and do the tricks and stuff.
Oh god, I was like doing a skate. Yeah, I vaguely recall that. I was like doing like trying to skate, but it was like a snowboard type looking thing. Right? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Yeah. God, the
balance board.
Yeah, the Wii Fit balance board thing.
Which initially, it's conceptually it's still pretty cool, especially for in terms of trying to look at physical fitness, whatever. But again, one of those devices that really didn't age well.
I never played with it, but apparently, if you had Wii Punch Out, you could use that to dodge with.
Yeah. If it and honestly, Wii Fit I thought was a great idea, but that balance board, if the balance board actually, like, you have to do push-ups and stuff on the balance board. And the problem is, as a sweaty bastard, my hands would always slip on that. even though it was a textured grip, my hands would still slip on it.
Right.
So I would be trying to do push-ups, and I'd be more concerned with not slipping off and smacking my face on it than actually doing correct form and stuff. So that was my major issue with it. But it was a great idea in theory. It didn't work for me personally in practice.
Right. And they've continued that. Like, so they got away from the balance board and they went to the Ring Fit for the Switch, which, obviously it's a tension band that you put both Joy-Cons in. Is it both or one? I think it's one. Because the other one can go on your leg.
Right.
If you have the leg strap. That's right.
The leg strap, yeah.
And that's really cool because, like, the way, they have, the gamify running and they do all sorts of fun things with it. You can do a lot. It's amazing how many exercises they came up with, or at least they didn't come up with them, but they incorporated it into the game,
right?
Just using that device. And that was kind of, to me, their next thing as far as moving away from the balance board. And I don't know. I always appreciated the fact that they've always had that in their line of thinking with movement. Obviously, it started with the power pad, and then that's kind of where they're at now, is with the Ring Fit. I don't know.
I keep thinking about picking up a Ring Fit, but I haven't yet.
It's not bad. If you see it on sale or something, I would grab it.
It's really cool. I'm a big fan of it. I don't use it as much as I haven't touched it in a while. I use it not as much as I nearly should, but it's really, really neat. It's actually a really well put together product.
Yeah.
It's a nice compliment to have for your Switch. I'll say that, particularly if you're wanting to it does a lot with your arms. I'll say that because it's a tension band, so arms, shoulders, but they do have all those things in there that make you run. So
yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. But I always appreciate it with Nintendo. They've always did a good job about trying to incorporate physical movement into their games. I know, Bob, that with and we've talked about this, but with Power Pros or any kind of baseball games that they've had, with going back to the Wii or whatever, and swinging the Wiimote or those sorts of things, which may not sound like a lot, but it's something.
Yeah, it's moving. I mean, you remember probably playing at college or at Stockton. I had that baseball game that had the little foam bat, and it had the actual, like, the baseball attached to the plate, and you would select your pitch, and then you would actually make the throwing motion and swing the bat. And that was before Wii Sports came out. That was before the Wii. I don't know.
That connected to the TV, right?
Yeah, it was like one of the plug-in, like the plug and play games where you get like the Nintendo controller or the Atari controller, and it's got however many games. But this was baseball.
Do you? I know this isn't a peripheral, but that reminded me of Nolan Ryan's Strike Zone Baseball.
I had that.
Yep, I did too. So, like, the board that hung on the back of the door, you had the small, soft baseballs, and you had to, aim. It was basically playing darts.
Yeah,
was what it was, but you had to pinpoint it. Yeah, pretty neat.
I had this little He-Man thing that came with Velcro balls that you would throw at the little dartboard. Is that like the same thing?
No. It was electronic. It actually kept score and stuff.
Okay.
And so what it would do is it would actually say, all right, so and so is up to bat, and then it would show you in the strike zone, it would show you the areas that they were good at hitting would have a green light, and the areas that they couldn't hit was a red light, and you had to try and hit the red lights that were in there, the spaces that had the red lights. So you would actually throw it at it, and then it would keep score, and it would do like strike. It was cool. It was really cool. But that reminds me of another peripheral, and I know it came out for the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. I think it was called like Batter Up or something like that. And it was a bat. Get the hell out! I kind of want that.
I was looking at it before you sent that. The one I'm looking at was $99. I don't know what this one is.
It's $99.99.
See, it's probably the same one. Yeah. But none of those people are Nolan Ryan.
No, you're right.
Oh no, he just put his name on it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it was called Batter Up or something like that, and it was a baseball bat controller, and you would swing it to hit the ball. and I had gotten it like well after the Genesis and the Super Nintendo had their day, and mine never worked, so I never really got to try it. But it looked cool. It was a really cool concept. It just
Batter up controller.
I remember using that controller in the Walking Tall game.
That's good.
Thank
Oh man. So I'll have to go back though.
When you mentioned peripherals, I was thinking I actually just got one today for the PS5. I've been watching more movies on it than anything else, and got sick of using the controller to control movies. So I picked up the media controller or the media remote.
Yeah, I've got one too, and then awesome.
I probably need
better
to
than
get
the
one of
controller.
those.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
I've got one of those media controllers too. It's awesome. Oh, sweet! Wow, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Wow,
I didn't have the box, but
only $250.
yeah, only $250 for something that may or may not work.
Wow.
But, so what was
you can still hit baseballs with it if it doesn't work.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. What's the first wireless controller that you guys used that made you think that wireless was a viable way to go?
PS3.
Yeah.
DualShock 3. I was when I finally got to the point of it not being a, it's not a novelty. It's something that this, to me, it was like this could actually be the game changer. And I'm not saying that with just that, it very well could have been the 360, iteration at that point. Because at that time I switched more to console, so I was already away from PC gaming. And quite frankly, even if I was still PC gaming, I probably would have had something that was wired in because you sit right on top of it anyway.
Yeah.
So that to me was like the first like real wireless controller that made me think. And again, I guess I could say the same thing about the Wiimote, but as far as I will always have Nintendo in like a different frame of mind when I think about. This is an odd conversation, but like when I play the PS5, I'm obviously thinking about a whole nother sect of gaming than I am comparative to when I play the Switch. So, these graphically intensive, fun experiences, which obviously are different on the Switch, but something that I guess like had in my hands that I could be, oh wait, I'm playing this really cool game called Skyrim that looks amazing, better than anything I've ever seen. And I'm sitting on my couch and I'm not having to move and there's no lag and it's not breaking. It's, you know what I mean? I think that's when I finally realized like this is where it's at.
How about you, Rich?
I was trying to think if it was either the 360 controller or the Wavebird.
See, now the Wavebird is what made me think, because up until that, like I had tried different wireless for the original Xbox. I had bought like multiple different ones and I always ended up disappointed in them. But the Wavebird actually was the first one that I was like, holy crap, this is good. And it sold me on Nintendo for wireless. But when the 360 came out, I remember getting the original 360 without the hard drive. Like I got like the basic one and bought the hard drive separate because I didn't want a wireless controller because I didn't trust the wireless controller. And
See, I had no experience with Wavebird, and this will be a kind of a reveal here. I never owned a GameCube, so
you played it when I brought it over.
Yeah, but I don't remember ever playing with the Wavebird. I remember just holding
I had 4 Wavebirds, bud.
Oh, okay. Well, really made the impression.
Made an impression on you, didn't it? Shit. All right. Well, obviously the Wavebird didn't do it for you.
Well, I didn't own it.
The bird wasn't the word.
So that's the thing. Like I didn't own it, but
everybody heard about the bird.
Thank you.
You know.
So all right. So then, what are some peripherals that really either you were really excited about to get, and then when you got them, they were everything you thought they would be, or ones that just completely missed the mark, or that you just never got at all? Ones that you wanted that you still just, you just never got.
I was wanting a Power Glove when I was a kid. I never got one. Of course, as time went on, I was kind of glad I didn't. But then as time went on, it's like I kind of wish I still had. I kind of wish I got one.
I had one. You weren't missing anything. You use it like maybe 2 times before you realize, well, this is really. It takes forever to set up, and then it doesn't work, so you never bring it out again ever. That said, I wish I had one now, just so I could.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Right. I mean, that's. It's funny. The things that I really wish that like I would have had, and I never really had for any console or even PC for that matter. And Bob, I know you and I have kind of gone back and forth on this before. It's just a good steering wheel and pedal. I for whatever reason I've just never gone down that road. But I play so many driving, racing type games that you would think at some point, because I love Gran Turismo. I've always played a ton of Mario Kart. Obviously I'm a huge Twisted Metal fan. So there's a whole bunch of different racing driving games that I played over the years that you would think at some point that I would have, dove into that. But I don't know, it's one thing I just never have. I don't know why.
I can never get into steering wheels and pedals. I mean, it would probably, it would make it more immersive. But anytime I've tried, like Peyton has a couple different setups. He has one for his Switch and he has one for his Xbox, and they're essentially, I think, the same thing, just set up differently. But like with feedback and all that stuff, and I just can't get into it. And I've tried multiple times, and even driving games in the arcade, I'm just no good with a steering wheel and pedals, which Richie, you can actually attest to that from me intentionally sliding around in the snow in my old Mustang in back when I lived in Mullica Hill. I remember scaring the shit out of you the one time driving it, intentionally fucking around. But the one that I've always wanted, and I finally got it, and then it let me down so bad, was do you guys remember the NES Max controller?
Is that the big one, or is that the one? That's the Advantage.
No, that was the Advantage. The Max was like the little one that looked
with the slide.
Yeah, it had the disc.
Yeah,
I thought the disc was like an analog controller. It's not. The disc, you just slide it, and then there's buttons you have to hit around the rim of it. And it was fucking atrocious. It sucked so fucking bad. I threw it out.
I was saying, how do you use that?
It's like, dude, you don't. You look at it and then you just walk away and you don't buy it.
What's funny is if you had the original PSP, it's like the same controller the PSP had for some stick. Like it's just a little slidey thing.
So that doesn't move anything. You have to. That's just there to keep your thumb, like to guide your thumb.
Oh, like it doesn't slide.
It slides around, but it doesn't control anything when you slide it around. You have to slide it to the edge and hit the button.
Well, that's weird.
That's kind of just to guide your thumb.
It's like the world's worst joystick, basically.
Yeah.
No, there's a worse one. I had this one I think I had it for the Super Nintendo. It didn't have a joystick. It had these weird capacitive touchpad thing.
Yeah. The yellow, it had like the yellow pad thing.
Or something else. Like just this rubber thing. And you just slide your finger over it, and that's supposed to be so there's like no tactile feedback. Like it just feels weird.
Wait, for the Super Nintendo?
I think it was for the Super Nintendo.
They made it for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis.
What was it? Do you remember? exactly.
I'm looking it up now.
no
I
idea
can't
what it was
remember
called.
what the fuck it was called, but I remember it, and I remember seeing it advertised in every single gaming magazine.
I don't even remember how I got it. It just like showed up at the house.
I remember thinking it looked super cool, and then never getting it and being happy I never got it.
I think it had turbo and stuff on there too, where you could
Yeah,
program macros
it
into it or something.
was. Shit, what was it called though? Like I know exactly. I can picture the damn thing, and it had like sharp corner. Like the Super Nintendo one, if I remember correctly, it had like the shell of it was shaped like the Genesis 3-button controller. Like it had the sharp edges to it. Shit, why can I not think of what it was called?
Yeah, I don't remember at all. The
Was it
you
the
know,
was it called the Turbo? Oh fuck. What was it
see,
called?
and speaking of like Super Nintendo peripherals, that's what I'm kind of glad you mentioned it because I'm thinking of two right now. Mario Paint. I had the mouse and the game, obviously. Did you guys have Mario Paint with the mouse?
My cousin had it and I loved it.
That was awesome.
It's cool. There wasn't really, at least in the US, there wasn't a lot that used
Turbo
it.
Touch 360.
Yeah, I got it too.
Turbo Touch 360.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. So Microsoft ripping off little Nintendo there. We're console gaming and
No, it was by Triax.
Triax Turbo Touch 360. Oh boy. Let's see what kind of
Yeah.
that just looks.
Scroll down, it's like towards the bottom of that thing I sent you.
My goodness.
Yeah, I found it on DK Oldies, which that's a whole nother fucking thing for another time. Whole nother episode.
You know what though, Rich? This link that you sent, there are a ton of peripherals there that just look like the Bishu jet fighter. These look like something like that somebody made themselves.
Yeah.
They really do.
That the link Tom's looking at is vgjunk.com link or vgjunk.blogspot.com, whatever. A long time ago, I made a couple iPhone games in quotes, iPhone programs, and one of them was a beat 'em up bingo game that was based off of one of this guy's blog posting. Like I remember writing to him asking if I could I use this I was basically using it to learn how to make iOS stuff. So it was literally just a bingo board where if you hit the buttons, it would make little punch effects, and it was just like random things you'd see in beat 'em up games, like food inside trash cans for health and shit like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's how you made your millions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I because you have to spend what was it, $99 a year on a thing. I think I sold $30 worth of one of the apps. I had two apps. The other one let you scan the back of a 360 game, and it told you whether or not it would work on a. I don't know. You scanned the back of an Xbox game, and it told you whether or not it would work on a 360 because not every game was
backwards compatible.
on
I
that.
remember when you were working on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one that I made. I sold $30 worth of copies of it, but because you had to spend $99 or whatever, I made negative $60.
Jesus
But
Christ.
I put on my resume that I had games on the Apple Store, and that was worth it at the time.
Hey, yeah.
And I had to buy a Mac to make those games because I didn't have a Mac at the time, and you needed a Apple computer.
And now you're tied in, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
You're part of the collective, like me. So one that I remember, there were two the dueling light guns that I wanted were the Menacer and the Super Scope 6 with Rich. You had the Super Scope 6, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah. I remember wanting that so bad.
First of all, that sucked because it took 6 AA batteries and they lasted maybe 3 hours. And
you're talking about the Super Scope 6?
Yeah. And then it was a bazooka, so you had to have this giant ass thing on your shoulder as you shot things in horrible video games.
But what about the Mario game where you got to use a bazooka to shoot enemies?
I never actually played that. I have that now, and I have a Super Soap 6 that doesn't work. So I tried to set it up one day, and only to find out that I can't play this. Fuck you. Yes.
And then the Menacer always looked cool. I always wanted that, but I only wanted the Menacer because I wanted to play Terminator 2, the arcade game, on the Genesis with it.
Now, what's cool about that is there's actually 2 editions of Terminator 2 for the Genesis, and only one of them lets you use the Menacer with it.
Yeah. There's Terminator 2, the side-scrolling adventure.
Oh no! There's 2 versions of the arcade game too.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, one of them came out after the Menacer. That was Menacer. Like they came out specifically for the Menacer.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have been pissed if I'd have gotten the wrong one.
Yep.
Well, now, dude, now you can just spend $700 and get the arcade one up.
Yeah.
I mean, now the problems are solved. I mean,
yeah. Well, I could also just shit in my hand and smear it on my face, but I'm not going to do that either.
You could probably hack Revolution X on that, though. They both use the same controller.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know though, man. I don't know how hackable they are without like soldering and shit. And
Oh no, it's just there's no soldering. You unplug something and plug a Raspberry Pi into it. It's supposed to be real easy.
Oh no shit.
Yeah.
Well, fuck.
I almost bought a Revolution X arcade game once. I think I found one for under $500 at one point. I'm kind of wishing I bought it.
Yeah. I don't blame you. That's one that I would like to have. In my dream existence, where I have a big enough house to have things that I like, and don't have to keep selling things to pay the bills. I like have this nice arcade room with all my nerd shit in it, and that's one of the arcade games that's in there.
Yeah, I always wanted a nice pinball machine.
Dude, I want that Foo Fighters machine so fucking bad.
Well, the cheap one's going for what, $8,000?
Yeah,
is that what it is?
Yeah. So never gonna own that, but
yeah, pinball machines for some reason aren't cheap.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I don't know. And
like you can still find deals on arcade games, arcade cabinets, but no, pinball machines are just nuts.
Yeah.
And a lot of there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of mechanical things with it, but even the more electronic ones are still ridiculously expensive. I mean, you're talking
ones.
Yeah, you're talking, in a realm of $6,000 to $15,000 for the new, and we're the ones that maybe get put in an arcade, but it's just ridiculous, and that's not the high end. We're just talking about the standard. Hey, I'm going to go buy myself my pinball machine.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically where you're at. It's crazy. If I had the money, the only thing I would buy, and I attribute this to Bob, would be a Cruisin' Blast. That's all I would want, just so I could play that song over and over and over again, just to piss people off. That's $12,000, by the way. I looked it up.
Or Daytona.
No, Cruisin' Blast for sure, 100%. Yeah, it's only $12,000. That's yeah.
I want to get Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for I'm going to take it for a ride. Fucking hate that song so goddamn much.
Yeah, well, I mean, arcade cabinets were notorious for earworms.
Yeah,
and they kind of had to be, although
I want the X-Men arcade game.
Oh, the 91?
Yeah, so that I can just hear Magneto going, "Welcome to die."
So that was the same year as the Simpsons arcade game, right?
Yeah, get them both.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, that would be... Look, X-Men arcade game, Simpsons arcade game, Turtles in Time, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Michael Jackson Moonwalker, because not. Punch Out. No, the original Punch Out doesn't go in there. That Neo Geo one that had like 6 games on it, and Samurai Showdown was 3 of them. That one goes in there.
It's actually cheaper to buy a Neo Geo arcade game, or arcade cabinet rather, than to get an AES console and the games, just because the games are so expensive for a Neo Geo AES.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? It's
Yeah.
just amazing.
Let's see. What else goes in there?
I'm not bragging or anything, but I own 3 arcade games. I have a Miss Pac-Man Cocktail, Tron, and a Wizard of War that's at my parents' house,
Nice.
my mom's house.
Um,
And I think the most I spent on them was for the Miss Pac-Man. I spent $700 on that one. But the Tron I spent $150 on, and the Wizard of War was $300. So
but this was all pre like gaming
it's
rush.
pre-COVID, but not like
Yeah.
pre-gaming. Right? It's just you have to wait on them. I don't think you're going to find them for $150 anymore. But I mean, you can still find them for under $5 if you look hard enough. But you can find a lot of them for under $5. Miss Pac-Man, they start at $600 or $700 depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that take those old cabinets too, and they gut them, and then they put in the 50-in-1s or the 100-in-1s, 300-in-1s,
Yeah,
whatever.
The worst people are the people that take them and put an LCD screen inside of them and take out the CRT screen.
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
Well, they're pieces of shit. So
yes,
Actually, it's got so many years ago. We at the school district I worked for, we bought the guts for arcade cabinets and built them out of plywood and whatever. And so when I say guts, I mean it was joysticks, board, coin slots, everything. And that was the original fundraiser for our esports program.
that's cool.
So we tore apart monitors, we did everything and built these cabinets. And once again, and Brock, who's been on here before, he's actually taking a Rocket League team to states here this coming weekend. So we're still pushing forward, but that's how we started. We had to make money somehow. So we built 2 cabinets and put them in the cafeterias.
I built a kit. It's a not a cab. Countertop arcade. That was a kit for Raspberry Pi. So it had the full arcade stuff, and then you just put a Raspberry Pi in it with one of its Open Emu. I forget exactly which thing it's running.
Yeah, probably it's either open or yeah. Because I did the Raspberry Pi thing with. Pardon me, Rich. Do you know the proper pronunciation? Is it RetroArch?
I think that's how I always pronounce it.
I know Bob and I have gone back and forth on that many a time, but I did that, and that's how I did console. So, and it had some arcade emulation on it too. It just depended upon the ROMs and different things that you threw on there. But
so what's the worst peripheral that you guys have ever seen, used, or ones that you didn't like, ones you didn't get because you knew they were going to be garbage, or like, is there anything out there that you were just like, fuck that, like that's the dumbest shit ever?
Well, the Power Glove was bad. I never used a U-Force, but that's like a Power Glove without anything.
Yeah.
I
remember that.
Sega had the activator. Was that the one that sits on the floor and you wave your hands above it?
It's
and
IR too.
You're breaking IR beams with that one, so that one's not good. But the worst one, I've never actually used it, but the AVGN, Angry Video Game Nerd, had it. Was the Rollin' Rocker?
Yes.
That thing where you're supposed to stand on it for the Nintendo, and it moves you up, down, left, or right depending on how you roll on the thing.
So the activator I thought looked super cool, and I always wanted it, never got it, and now I'm glad I didn't.
Well, they showed the kid playing Street Fighter on it, and it's like, I'm gonna punch. It's gonna punch, and it's like, you're right. They made that's what they're supposed to do. The commercials made them. Yeah,
because it came out like to coincide with Eternal Champions, and that was supposed to be like its tie-in game. But the Rollin' Rocker, Brian Zamorowitz had that, so I actually got to try that, and goddamn, that thing was fucking terrible. That thing was so fucking bad. Like, I still, when I think of like just shit peripherals, that's what comes to mind.
The one that I really wish I would have had back in the day, and never had it, and part of me, even as it didn't age well, was the Game Boy camera and printer. And obviously, the quality being like 0.00001 megapixel.
Hey, but you know what? The printer will last forever because it's a thermal printer.
Right, right. And I always thought that was really a cool peripheral for the time. One of those things that I guess kind of the love hate with the Power Glove. Like, I don't know, like I really wanted it, but obviously realize it's, you
It
know.
was cool. Like Ryan had it, and it was cool. Like he would go around the house taking pictures of people and taking pictures of the dog and stuff, and it was cool. But it,
Because I could sit here we all could say this too with a lot of the third party crap controllers for any system, and new systems included. There's a lot of companies that just release junk, and it's unfortunate because we have things like Amazon and companies that just come up with everything. It's like, oh, buy this controller for that's a lot. It's like a cheap Joy-Con, if you will. Well, it's a cheap Joy-Con for a reason,
right?
because it's a piece of crap.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that we could easily say, but like as far as things that I thought were like really neat, I guess really going back, if you bring back up the power plant, for example, I thought that was awesome when it came out when I was a kid. Now, it's what 16 buttons on a plastic pad that that you have
Hey,
to,
it had two sides.
you know, I don't know.
It's like an inferior dance mat for Dance Dance Revolution.
Yeah. I can't think of any bad things other than the ones we just said, but for good things, I have the Hori Game Boy controller for the GameCube,
Oh yeah.
which is a little too expensive for what it is, but it basically looks like a Nintendo controller for your GameCube, so you can use the Game Boy player on there better.
Oh yeah. I remember. I never had one, but I know it. Yeah. Okay.
That's one that
And then-
skyrocketed in price, didn't it?
Yeah, yes, it did.
Yeah, because of course it did, because I fucking had two of them.
Oh, and then for my Nintendo and Super Nintendo and whatever's 8-bit came out with these. I don't think they're Bluetooth. I think they're oh Jesus Christ, whatever Wi-Fi would be. I forget that. Anyway, you could use their controllers with them, but they also put out these kits where you could take a real Nintendo controller or a Super Nintendo controller and take out the board in them and put in their board and turn it into a wireless controller. So it's like you're using the real thing, but you're using a wireless version of the real controller. So it still feels like because it's just with a different board.
Yeah, they do some really cool stuff. I was debating using them whenever I was messing around with Raspberry Pi stuff, because just manipulating some of the stuff I still had. I thought it was really cool.
For the Raspberry Pi, I just use a PS4 controller, and they came out with their little dongle, so I use.
Yeah, that's what when I was still messing with it, I was using a DualShock 3. So.
And then for my computer, I have a SteelSeries Nimbus, which looks basically like the Switch Pro controller. It works really well. I use it for my iPad and my Mac.
So either Bob's stuck or he's trying to get you to.
He's trying to get me to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was doing that.
But speaking of Switch, though, they released some really cool controllers based on the previous system. So the NES one, Super Nintendo. I got my hands on the 64 one finally.
That's the one I want, but I can't get. Yeah.
I got and it was a really weird thing. So I caught it in like a couple-hour window when it was available, and I got it within the last month. Yeah, it's awesome. It works really, really well.
You can't play the Nintendo 64 games on their thing without one of them because the controller sucks with it. You can't use the regular Switch controllers.
Yeah, and so it's exactly like 64 controller. The home button and the ZR are right on top, so they're not in the way. Everything else is identical. So I've been playing through GoldenEye now without a problem. Battery life seems fine. It's just like every other Switch controller. It's USB-C, so works really well. I also have the two Super Nintendos and two Nintendos, but I only got one of the 64s because they were limiting one, I think, maybe.
Yeah. I think the other one, the Nintendo one, came in it. I think you can only buy it as a 2-pack.
2-pack. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
They could also maybe just I don't know, fucking make more.
That's not their thing. That's not what we do, man. We're exclusive.
Yeah, it's true.
We need that forced. When that Metroid Prime remaster came out, you couldn't find. I didn't buy it. I should have bought it, but it was at Walmart. The actual physical copies of it, and for a while that was a thing. And then the stupid. I wanted to buy the Final Fantasy games. I was going to get them physically, but one, I didn't realize it was $99 if you wanted to buy all of the Final Fantasy games, or $75, I think, if you buy them digitally. The Pixel remasters. So I'm going to skip them because I know I'll just buy it again and start Final Fantasy 6/3 and make it halfway through and stop. I've never made it past the halfway point on that game ever, and I've been playing it or trying to play it since it originally came out.
Well,
Yeah, it's a fun one though. I've always stuck on US 2 and 3, so well, I love 2, US 2, but yeah, I don't know. Bob, what about you? Any final thoughts on love, hate, peripherals that just come out and whack you in the face one way or the other?
no, I mean I don't know. I the only one I really hated was the fucking the Max. I did want though. There was a couple years ago when Ace Combat 7 came out. I almost jumped on the train because they had it was for like $130. You got Ace Combat 7 and then the Thrustmaster. I almost grabbed that, but I didn't end up getting it, and I wish I would have because now that controller itself sells for like well over $150.
Yeah, you just what the hell is the one that they just got it in at Next Level Games, and it was for the original Xbox, and it's that giant mech one where like you sit basically inside of it because it goes around you. That was always expensive, but now is like $700 just for the controller.
Yeah, I know what game you're talking. Steel Battalion.
No, not Super Tank. It's called something.
No, Steel Battalion.
Steel Battalion. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know who had that? And I don't know if they still do or not, but Ewan used to have that.
I always
Wow. So how the heck did we make it 160 episodes? That might be the first mention he's gotten.
No, we've talked about him before because we said he was still waiting at Geno's.
Oh, that's right. It was like episode 4.
I remember you guys talking about it doing a couple episodes, and I was never in a positive light, but
no. Yeah. Well, we can't talk about him in a positive light.
Yeah,
he's a dirty sheep fucker.